In Loving County, yesterday there was a video that was published about how Loving County is seeing a surge in population.
This summer, residents of Mentone in far west Texas started noticing some unfamiliar people around town. That's not so unusual. There's fewer than 100 residents in Loving County. It's the least populated county in the country. Move in enough people to start winning political offices. That sounds really boring. Who cares who's county commissioner? But Loving County is an unusual place for other reasons. It's in the middle of the Permian Basin, meaning it collects millions and millions of dollars in oil every year. In fact, its government is one of the richest per capita places in the state. Another thing about Loving County, it has a history of really loose voter registration enforcement. Small population, big budget, easy voting. It's the perfect place for a small group of people who want to attempt a political overthrow.
Basically overwhelm these cities and populations with an enormous amount of people that they can't handle and force people to leave. Now, with Loving County, it's more of a surgical attempt, okay? The political results that happen there end up directly influencing what is the largest oil reserve underground of this side of this hemisphere, this in Alaska. Think of it like this. Imagine over the last 4 years, Greta and her band of merry men are taking a boat and they want to go after another clean energy source. We'll call it whale blubber. I'm joking. This is a bit of satire, so don't get your panties in a twist here. But if you're going after whale blubber, they're going after whaling ships. So what do? They grab, a few different fishing boats or whatever, and they go out and they try to attack or make life very difficult for the major fishing vessel that's harvesting whale blubber. And eventually, because they're not necessarily seamen, they get overpowered, or the authorities out on the high seas take over, or the people on the boat end up destroying the other boat and take them on as prisoners and then deliver them to authorities when they get back, and they're in jail, and then they get bailed out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Cycle repeats, right? Same thing with what was going on with Greta and going to Palestine. She would bring stuff in, she would get stopped, she'd make a statement, and their job was more based on making a statement and staying relevant in the news than disappearing. But in this scenario, I want you to imagine what's happening in Loving County. Less than 100 residents in this county. The county is vast because of all the land out there. And most of the people who work within the oil field don't live out there. They live a few hours in near a metroplex, right? A largely populated area where their kids can go to school, where they can go to a good college, et cetera, et cetera. The creature comforts and groceries, there's a Trader Joe's and a Whole Foods. People want that, right? Okay. So they don't necessarily live in that location. Thus, Loving County, having less than 100 people, is like a one-hat town. It has one person who does this job. It has one person who does that job, because if there was any competition inside of that market, one of them would, put the other one out of business. There's only enough business in a town of under 100 people for like one business. Otherwise, if you have two businesses, one's going to fail because they're not making enough money. And that's how it becomes a one-hat town. So how does that relate to Greta? Well, I want you to imagine that while they're sitting in the holding cell, in the cell next to it, a person pipes up and says, I don't know why you're going after these boats. And then they all stand up because they have to, virtue signal and let them know how just their mission is, as we can imagine. Let's take a moment to imagine how annoying that would be. Okay, that's enough time. So after they go through their whole spiel, the guy goes, no, I just don't understand why you're going after boats. And they're like, well, we just told you. And they spend 2 more hours, lib-splaining to them how and why what they're doing is virtuous and it's the right thing. And then the guy goes, no, I'm actually just calling you stupid. Every whaling boat is made in this city, and it's the only place that those whaling boats can come for repairs too, because this has been the place that everyone gets those whaling boats for 100 years. And then in that moment, Greta has her first brilliant moment in her life. We don't even need to attack the fishing industry or the shipping company. If we go and take the 7 or 8 people into this town of, we're just going to use a hypothetical 50 people where they build these ships, we've now altered the population by 20%. Thus, we become a major voting bloc, especially if it's just a group of individuals. without lifting a finger to physically protest, simply changing the demographics of that fishing town, they can then make it illegal to make boats or have any kind of, you know, pollution that goes in the air, any kind of waste, or smelting of lead, or the light and the sound that comes from welding something blinds birds, right? Anything that they want to, they can write like city parks and rec legislation, ordinances for what kind of materials are or are not allowed to be brought in, plastic bags versus paper or bring your own, right? Because the population is so small, they end up becoming a force that can create legislation, and there's not enough people to oppose it. And the people who do oppose it, who live there, don't have a capacity to continue doing so for long. Why? Well, again, one hat town, right? So in Loving County, there's nobody there who's paying them to be there. Every person only has their business and that's it. Otherwise, they physically don't have the means to live there. And nobody else wants to live there who has the money to move there because they'd rather use their money and raise their family in a better environment. So it's a target rich environment that your bang for your buck is almost like 10x of what it would be for anything else. So what's happening in Loving County is people are being moved into RVs, establishing residence, and they are actually stating, we're here to change the voting demographic and thus the laws. That's being said. So what does that mean? Outside influences, rather than spending X number of dollars and all of the tax funds and federal funds that were going towards 501c3s like Catholic Charities and funneling people illegal into communities. Now, okay, well, our big stream of cash has been cut off. Where do we spend our money most usefully? How about you pay 100 people to go into a city and live in RVs and vote? And that's all they have to do. They could probably treat them like San Francisco or Vancouver, where they just give them drugs if they wanted to. Keep them happy, keep them there, show up, ballot harvest every November. And now what you've done is, as with Greta and a group of people stopping a shipbuilding company, you have now affected the largest oil reserve in the world and the one that is directly influencing U.S. markets. Thus, a third of the world's energy can be taken hostage by paying 50 to 60 people to live in a shanty town. Bizarre, but very intelligent and intentional.